You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 93, Disorganization. What you don't know can hurt you, with Erik De La Garza. If you are an entrepreneur who wants actionable solutions to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Okay, you are in for a treat today. I am really looking forward to bringing this episode to you because you're going to meet our guest, my son, Erik De La Garza. Erik De La Garza is an 8-year-old boy who loves Batman, does jujitsu for the last 4 years, is in the 3rd grade, has extremely amazing insights about life because he questions everything. He is very strong-willed, and he has an amazing future in front of him. Now, let me give you some insight. Obviously, this is my son. He has been on the podcast, and he was on the podcast way back on episode 9. And he did an episode all about affirmations and how it helps him in his life and how it could help you as well. That episode is one of my most downloaded episodes. And I feel that not just because the topic, but because the messaging was coming from maybe an unexpected source. He has since wanted to be on the podcast, and I have, strong and high standards for those who I asked on my podcast. So I charged him with the task of finding something that he believes that he could share that would be of value to you and the listener. And he has been working on that, and he has pitched me many topic ideas. And this one came top of mind because it was an experience that we just went through very, very recently. So I want you to stay tuned to listen to him and his experience about organization and disorganization and how it affects him reaching, in his own words, his max. When listening in on my conversation with Erik, you will discover ways disorganization could be holding you back, how being disorganized comes down to your habits, what you can do to determine the root cause of your disorganization, the easiest way to get and stay organized, and so much more. So let's dive right in and meet Erik. Oh, but before we get into the interview, I'm going to share with you an intro that my son recorded on my phone about 18 months ago when he had decided that he was able to create the intro for this podcast instead of me hiring it out to have it professionally recorded. And I got to tell you, I had no hand in this at all. Not with what he said, when he said it, why he said it. He, in fact, recorded it while I was driving when he was in the backseat of my car. He asked to play with my phone. And next thing I know, this is what he created.
Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk with your host and my mom, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist. She will always be happy to put you into success with your business. You just need to say, please. Her business is successful, and you can have that too.
This episode of Productivity Straight Talk is brought to you by my very own signature coaching and training program, Stop, the Entrepreneur's Success Solution. If you are ready to stop struggling in your business and start succeeding, head on over to theproductivityspecialist.com/stop to find out more. Again, that's theproductivityspecialist.com/stop, STOP. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk, Erik. How are you today?
Excellent.
Well, I'm really excited to have you back for another episode of Productivity Straight Talk. Something happened this week that came up that we thought would make a really good episode, or at least lesson for our listeners, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to help me share that with them a story about how we had different definitions of what organization was, and therefore we didn't see eye to eye on how maybe organization is affecting your grades, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Erik is a really good student. He's really smart. However, his grades, I believe, have been suffering a bit because, well, he actually does his homework and then doesn't turn it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that.
You agree with that? Okay. And so I couldn't for the life of me figure out why someone would want to do the work and then miss the deadline or completely forget about turning it in. And what I explained to him was that I believe that it was rooted in disorganization. And he adamantly denied that. Is that correct?
Yes.
And why did you deny that?
Because I only had one of the meanings of organization, and that was like keeping your desk clean or keeping your folders clean, or in your case, keeping your customers where they need to be. And my only definition was type of that. But there's a different definition, and I didn't know that at that time.
So the definition that I further got out of him was that he saw that, or he believed that organization was only specifically about the way our space looks. So meaning we have our papers in order, there's lack of clutter, everything has a home for a physical things, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when I further explained that I believe that this was a workflow process disorganization, which falls under disorganization in my book, and further explained it to you, and we will for our listeners, you had a big aha, right?
Yeah.
Because before I realized that we were having different definitions of organization, the conversation wasn't going too well. You were adamant that you did not have to improve your organization.
That is very true.
So before we tell them what solution we came to, why were you so adamant not to fix your organization?
I didn't think it would really bother my grades, and I just kind of didn't really care if it was clean or not. But I learned that it is something that's very important.
So essentially what he told me was that there are really, really smart people like Albert Einstein that are completely disorganized, and that he did not understand why I was making it such a point for him to be disorganized, or that I believed he was disorganized. And for those of you that have been longtime listeners, you know that I truly, truly believe for each of us to find our own way of being most productive. And for some of you, it's going to be a very, very clean environment that allows you to focus. And for others, the clutter or maybe mess around you actually doesn't affect your ability to focus. So that is one specific example. But in this case, I was explaining to Erik that his lack of system, right, workflow, perhaps we can call it a routine, was actually affecting his grades. And so now it wasn't, I prefer to be disorganized or organized. It was this thing, disorganization, is actually having a negative effect on my life. And he now had to make the choice of, does he want to make improvements and corrections so that it does not affect his grades?
Yes, that's a big decision I had to make to figure out that that's one of the things that I have to do to get my grades up and get them somewhere where I know they're supposed to be, not just somewhere that I'm able to get to, but not the way that I'm able to get to as my max.
As your max, right? And, you know, as business owners, as you're listening to this, I think we all want to get to our max, right? And if we find that disorganization is holding us back, we want to make improvements. So we're going to walk through the process of how we worked this backwards into finding the core problem to his homework not being turned in, and then how once we found what the core problem was, we created a solution for him to work on. So we worked it backwards to say, well, the end result that was not acceptable was that the homework was not getting turned in the next day at school, right?
Yes.
And so for us to figure out why that happened, we had to take it back in all the steps that got us there.
Yes.
So I asked him, did the homework ever make it in your backpack?
I said no.
Okay. Did the homework ever make it in your homework folder to go back to school?
Yes.
Is that always or just sometimes?
I don't really know. I don't really pay attention to that type of stuff.
Okay. So the answer that I know to be true is that it actually doesn't always get back in the homework folder. And so he has a routine that after school, he gets his snack and then he does his homework, and he gets a homework folder where he needs to put his homework back in the folder after it's checked, and then the folder back in his backpack. And I know, being his mom, sometimes he'll leave and then I will see the homework still sitting on the kitchen table. Or sometimes the homework folder is still sitting on the kitchen table, but the homework's in it. And those are all kind of the missteps, right?
Yes.
So we trace this back to you not feeling that it was really important or didn't make it a priority. Would you say a priority?
Yeah.
Okay, so that you didn't make it a priority that once your homework was checked, that the very next thing that you did was put it in your homework folder.
I did that, just I didn't put it into my backpack.
And even if I reminded you, it didn't always get in there.
Yes, it didn't always get in there.
So then we realized that this was probably a habit that needed to be adjusted, right?
Yes.
Because I don't need to be telling you to put your homework folder in your backpack.
Correct.
That we wanted to work on identifying the habit that if he was to build, he can then be self-sufficient, do it himself, get the homework in the folder in the backpack to school, and then they can see how well you did on your actual homework, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am sharing that with you because as basic as that was, I personally had the biggest aha when I realized that my own son had a very narrow definition of what organization was. And in fact, there's different types of organization. There's physical space organization, there's digital organization, and most importantly, really is what I have found to be key is processes, workflows, rituals, and routines. And this was a lack of his rituals and routines being so ingrained in him with habits that he was able to do it day in and day out. And since we've had that conversation, you actually changed your mind about how important it is to be organized for good grades, right?
Yes, I did that because I realized that organization is something that you really need to move on and to have, in your case, a good business. In my case, good grades.
That's right. Do you have any other words of wisdom or experiences that you want to share with our listeners?
There's just one thing I would like to say. That what I learned, it really helped me because what I was and what I was doing was not my full self. But when I got my organization and figured out what organization really is too, I figured out that I'm able to do more and I'm able to do better.
Perfectly said, Erik. Thank you so much for being our guest today. And for those of you that don't know, he was on episode 9. So if you're a new listener or you haven't gone back and listened to episode 9, Erik was my guest expert, and he taught us about the power of affirmations and how to create affirmations, how the affirmations show up in his life. And it's one of my most downloaded episodes. So if you haven't gone back and listened to episode 9, we'll be sure to link out in the show notes so you can do so. Thank you so much, Erik, for sharing your experience and wisdom, because as you know, that's how people learn from us.
Yes, and thank you for having me on.
Okay, so there you have it, directly from my son. I have a question for you. How have you been defining organization for yourself? Did you have a very narrow, specific definition, such as it's just a reflection of your space and your environment and that everything has a home? Or have you dug deeper to realize that organization can actually be expanded out to multiple areas of our business and life? And have you identified, meaning have you really taken the time to ask yourself if your disorganization is affecting your max? Is it affecting you and your ability to do more and do better? If it is, I am encouraging you to take action and identify where there is breakage in your disorganization, in your processes, in your routines. This is something that I focus on so much with my clients because getting an outside perspective and really looking at these types of things is so much easier for someone that's trained and experienced like myself. And I'm not close to it. I'm not emotionally tied to it. I am not in the middle of your business. And so my outside perspective, I can see where there's a lot of breakage, lack of routines, where there can be tweaks. And that is what I did for Erik. He was stuck in a negative result that he did not want, but he wasn't sure how he was getting there. Can you relate? Is there something going on in your business and life where you're getting negative results, but you cannot figure out why? Well, for Erik, we tracked it all the way back. And so I just want to outline what process we actually ended up with because I'm not certain that was really, really clear in the actual interview. So Erik has committed to using the trigger of his homework being checked because once his homework is done, that's not the time to put it into the folder. And we had to be really, really clear because if I would have said, as soon as your homework's done, put it in your folder, that would have never worked for him because that's not truly, truly the next step. The next step is that myself, my husband, or our nanny is checking his homework. Once we check his homework and we say, yep, good to go, that's his trigger, i.e. reminder that the very next thing he needs to do is put it in his folder. And when he puts it in his folder, not to get himself distracted, unfocused, dancing around, playing or talking, or all the things any 8-year-old, or for that matter, adult can do to get distracted, but then to put it into his backpack. And once he got it into his backpack, it was there for when his teacher said, get your homework folder out. And for Erik, I think you heard that, and I would like to say because he's an 8-year-old, but it is so not true. I am here to tell you that there are so many people that see no value in organizing themselves. Like the effort to do that, they don't see value or what is the reward or what is the outcome. And I'm here to tell you that Erik said the very same thing. He saw no point in organizing his space or no point in making any changes in himself until he was able to tie it to a negative outcome. And therefore, when we switched it and we identified, well, what is the positive outcome that you're looking for, which in his case was getting credit for the homework he did, now he was willing to do the work to identify where the breakage was initially and do the work of building the habit and staying consistent with it so that, in his own words, he could reach his max. And so I feel like this is a really, really important lesson for each of you to learn is where can you make improvements that once you committed to it, you would see the benefits rippling through your business and life. All right, guys. So today was a very special episode and one that I hope gave you some things to think about. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. Where is it in your business and life that you are going to go take action on today because of today's episode? What did you hear when Erik and I were talking? What was something that came up for you that you're like, yeah, it's not my homework, but it's a proposal or it's something else, fill in the blank. Something else in your business or life is not happening the way that you want it to happen? And can it be traced back to a workflow, a process, a routine, a habit that's missing that if you focused on the solution, it would have rippling effects? That's what I'm going to leave you with today. And I would love to hear from you inside our private Facebook community. If you're not already a member, you can join us for free by going to productivitycommunity.com. And for all you Productivity Straight Talk insiders, please let Erik and I know what you thought of this episode. What were some key takeaways? What is it that my son was able to teach you or make you think of in a different way? Because that's our goal. It's my goal for every episode here is just to bring some new insights and ahas so that you can have the success you desire. And lastly, if you're interested in working with me, a great way to utilize a strategy session is something like this. I have this issue. I'm not sure what's causing it. Can we strategize, brainstorm, coach me, and train me all on a solution to break through maybe a consistently negative outcome? That's essentially what I did with my son. So if you're interested in getting started with a strategy session, you can go over to theproductivityspecialist.com/strategy session. And today I have a special thank you going out to Mr. Work Smarter, who recently said, "Loving the episodes, always learning something new, looking forward to future episodes." Mr. Work Smarter, thank you for taking the time to leave me a review on iTunes. If you're a listener and loving these episodes, there are two ways that you can support the show. One is leaving a review on iTunes or anywhere that you're listening to this podcast episode. And two, most importantly, is don't keep it a secret. Share it with another entrepreneur who you feel would find it valuable. You can do that via the share button on any podcast player app. You can put it into your social media. You can tell a friend that you're having coffee with. So that's my straight talk for you today. And until next time, have a productive week.